Now today's main game is going to be more practice for the UK Nationals due in September this year. So it's mid-war action and we're going to be playing the T34 list that I've been using. This will be the third time I've used it in practice games against Rob before on his channel, and there'll be a link to that game below, and to Peter. That was the last game we put up on this channel. So this will be the third outing. We'll see how they do in this outing. They're not defeated outright as such yet. I won't spoil the outcome of the other games if you've not seen them, but we'll see how they get on against a different kind of list from what they've previously come up against. So let's go over, check out that list and the list that Rob is bringing today. Here is Rob's force for today. So it's a little bit cobbled together and maybe will look a little bit weird, but this is a remote game and I want to get the minis on the table for Rob to play with a list that he wants to try out rather than something that looks perfect. So what have we got? We have got the Grant formation and an armoured car formation, and then support, lots of guns. So let's start with the Grants. It's nice and simple. It's HQ of 3, 2 platoons of 3, and then 3 Honey Stuarts, looking a little bit like sort of late war versions, folks, but they've got the same footprint in the game. That's the important thing here. So there you go. There's a very chunky pile of careful armour. 5 points armour on the front, it's not too bad. Decent remounts, and it's also got anti-tank 9 and anti-tank 7. So Grants, as you can see, I think I've actually got 11 of them in my collection. I like them as a tank in mid-war, though against the Germans, personally I always find that they have no luck. So we'll have to see how it goes in this game. Normally they just get shot to bits. And then an armoured car squadron, and there's a couple of subs in here, folks. There's a very green little dingo in there, and 2 universal carriers subbing in as Daimlers. So 2 platoons of Daimlers and Dingos and 1 of Humbers. So that is an armoured car squadron that will give some flexibility for deployment, but as well as cover lots off the table as required, move from hot point to hot point, and then shoot up soft assets such as my infantry or my mortars. Then 25 pounders, you're not going to leave home without them in your British force, I don't think, folks. And then some strange looking 17 pounders. They're not the pheasant types as they should be on the same trails as the 25 pounders, but there you go. There's artillery, smoke, and also decent anti-tank, and then also very good anti-tank. 36-inch range, anti-tank 12. These are the kind of weapons that are going to help deal with masses of tanks, sort of medium armour, such as the T34s, but also potentially any larger tanks, such as KVs, Churchills, and things like that. So, there you go, Rob's force for today. Right, folks, my T34s again. Now, you may have seen these in the game I played on Rob's channel. There's a link to that game below. And you may have seen these in the last game on this channel where I played against Peter's Hungarian Pz IVs. So they're going to get another run out to see how they do against the Brits. So you may be familiar with the list, but if not, here we go. It's basically, apart from the armoured cars, that is all one formation. You've got HQ, then 3 platoons of 5 T34s. And then the infantry, that's a big chunk of 15 submachine gunners. And the commissar, and then 6 mortars as the artillery, and 3 BA-10s for some armoured car support. So what have we got? Well, we've got decent armour and decent anti-tank for mid-war, decent firepower as well, 3 up firepower. They're not going to do much against heavies, but against medium armour, then if they can get themselves in a position where they can shoot, they can dish out punishment. However, they're hit on a 2, folks. So they're going to take a lot of hits. So even lower anti-tank against them can cause attritional damage, because it's easy to roll 1s and 2s, for instance, against anti-tank 9. It's even possible to roll a 1 against anti-tank 7 when you're getting hit so many times. So they've got to have good saves and then dish out the punishment when they get the chance. The infantry, well, those guys there are white and they're green. as well, so they're not going to do much in assault. These guys are also green, but they have a good assault rating because of submachine gunners for the motherland rule, and they can move 6 inches to contact as well, which is good when launching an assault. But they've got a 4-up save, so if they get hit, there's a very good chance that they're going to get clobbered. In my experience of trying to move infantry across the table in any period, regardless of what their skill level is and their to-hit rating is they tend to get shot to bits or blown up by artillery, mortars and so on. So we'll see what they can do. And then the mortars, these guys will punish you if they actually manage to get ranged in, but they're green again, so they need a 60 range in most circumstances, because in most circumstances it's going to be terrain. Then the good old clown cars, as I call them, the BA-10s, always seem to be a bit of a nuisance. They're certainly not going to do anything critical in the game, but they can get in the opponent's way from time to time. So, one last run out for these guys, folks. My T34 Mid War formation. The mission for today's main feature is Counter-Strike, which is the new version of Counter-Attack. The significant difference between Counter-Strike and Counter-Attack is that the former allows the defender to go first, because in this mission, the Counter-Attack mission, it's thought of as being a bit of a challenge, especially for infantry lists, to move towards the objective which is outside of their deployment zone after the attacker has already moved towards it. Now the objectives don't go live until turn 6, so they've got time to get there, but letting them go first gives them a bit more of a chance of winning. So this is one of the experimental missions that may get confirmed in due course. There is one important issue that attackers need to be aware of. When the defender goes first, victory conditions are set at turn 6, and the defender can win at the end of their turn 6, which means if the attacker is not in the right place by the end of their turn 5, for instance, they can lose the game already, if you understand, because they're not going to go first as they would in the traditional mission where the attacker goes first. So they have to be careful with that in their mission planning. The special rules for the mission are ambush for the defender, immediate reserves for the defender, and then meeting engagement for the defender, which means all firing at moving rate of fire, no aircraft and no artillery bombardments. You can see the deployment zones and objective zones in this mission are quite complicated, and there's lots of important decisions, especially for the defender, but for both players to make. The defender has to consider a strong deployment zone to defend from, but then also a deployment zone where the reserves are going to come through on, and then the attacker's got to decide which quarter they're going to attack from and the mobility or cover that they will offer, and then that then moves on to the defender thinking, well, depending on what the attacker does, where are the other objectives going to, well, the other objective, where's it going to go? And think about the terrain that might be placed in, because you're going to have to move to that terrain as well as cover your own objective. So it's a good challenging mission in that respect. Right folks, that is us deployed. So we're playing Counter-Strike, which is a new version of Counter-Attack. This is one where they're giving the defender a bit more of a chance by going first. Especially if you've got infantry, it gives you a chance to start moving towards the objective without being instantly pinned. So as far as objectives go, well, you see that it's a bit of a blur for deployment markers, folks, but basically Rob chose this end to defend, and you can see from the central point around there, down there, across there, that's his deployment zone, and that zone is where the objectives can go, and he's placed his here. I chose that side to attack from, which means that this side is where the other objectives are going to be, and I placed that there, and then Rob's reserves will be coming in from that corner, and it's immediate reserve, remember folks. So in terms of deployment, Rob's done a spearhead move here, and then he's got his 25 pounders. They've moved out into that bubble, and that's given some good cover around the corner to the objective there. Platoon of Grants behind a hill, then his Honey Stewarts and his Humbers hiding behind the wood at the moment. And then in ambush, 17 pounders, but remember he goes first, so that allows him to either hold off or just put his guns where he wants them. I haven't seen my deployment. So my deployment, folks, I better go around. It's not an ideal area to sort of burst out of at top speed, but you know, if I need to do a cross here, the T34 is a tank to do it. So I'm not too worried in that respect, but I've got my mortars here so they can fire down onto both objectives and areas around them. Then in big lump infantry, some of them are in the house. They're in the back edge. You've got them on right across the top, but they're the back edge of the house to be in the deployment zone. Then platoon plus HQ, a platoon, and then the clown cars up front, because that's what clown cars are for, folks. So that's us deployed. The defender's going to go first, so we'll come back at the end of Rob's turn 1. Turn 1. So British turn 1, first of all, 1 dice for reserves and no reserves. Now Rob's popped the ambush straight away, because to delay would push these guys into positions where it might be difficult to deploy them, because they're large guns and have to be out with short range to deploy. I could dash up and if I was to do so, make this area out of bounds for an ambush. So he's put them there, they're area denial. If I move at all, they're going to kick the living daylights out to me. They're not firing this turn though, because this is a meeting engagement. First turn for the defender, which means it's their moving rate of fire. So to roll 4 dice against the speculative targets, it's better to keep them safe, go on the ground. Also means the 25 pounders are not firing. Sorry, movement. These guys have dashed around to here. They've edged over. Now these, because of their formation, can give them moral support as long as the HQ stays alive. But even if that base got killed, the Humbers can move around to support them, because they're going to be a very valuable unit. So not a hell of a lot of action in the first turn from the Brits, but they've done everything that they really can be doing, because they've not gotten any reserves yet. It's always the same with these kind of missions, folks, when you've got a, you know, the meeting engagement rule. But over to the Soviets, because they've now got to get busy. Turn 5 is really the critical turn. They need to be in the right place by turn 5, so they're going to have to get shot up and get in there. Soviet turn 1 then, folks. So in terms of movement, the guys have went into the wood but staying away from the edge. Clown cars moving up into the field. Infantry moving forward with failed follow me. They're heading this way. And these guys are all dashing from here, doing a big loop around to have a bit of an armoured fight or an armoured chase. Remember guys, there's no point in rushing headlong for an objective at this point in the game, because they don't go live until turn 6. So there can be a degree of manoeuvring. So in terms of firing then, what did that leave me? My mortars tried to range in on the 25 pounders, but they needed a 6 because of their green. So no luck there. The guys tried a few pot shots down here with the main guns, needed 7s because they've gone to ground and they're overworked. So no hits there. So uneventful in terms of shooting, but certainly the lights have gone on and the cockroaches are just scattering everywhere over here, folks. Turn 2. So British turn 2 starting step. The only thing to do there was roll 2 dice for reserves, but once again nothing has arrived. So in terms of movement, they edged over there. Remember, fences don't require a cross-check, folks, so it's a good place for armoured cars to go and hide. They guys dashed all the way around to here, failed to follow me. That's the Stuart, sorry. Then the Grants moved up onto the hill, hull down, stayed put. So in terms of shooting, the guys got ranged in. I should put a marker down, but they got ranged in by the 25 pounders and lost 3 bases. And then they absolutely splattered them with MG fire and lost another 3 bases. So that's 6 down already in one turn, and they're very pinned. And then the Grants fluffed all their shots against the clown cars, but the 17 pounders certainly didn't. One of them bailed out the back tank in that line, which is actually the HQ, but he's still alive. Whether or not he gets back in is a different matter. And then the rest of them clobbered them. They finished off one that was bailed out and surviving. So that's the end of the clown cars already, folks, and infantry taking a bit of a pasting. So over to me for a bit more running around before the reserves arrive. Right, folks, so Soviet turn 2. Summary, first of all, I need to put a marker down here, sorry folks for the ranged in. Infantry didn't unpin. 3 up rally, but they didn't make it. The HQ tank did get back in. So in terms of movement, infantry have pulled back. Remember, they're green, they need a 5 to dig in, and digging in under a repeat bombardment when you've got a 4-up save isn't a good idea anyway, so they've gone back to where they've at least got some bulletproof cover. You can see the tanks. They're moving out in anticipation of a fight with the reserves. And then those guys are staying put. It's a whole lot of tanks, but I need a threat on that side of the table as well, folks. So in terms of shooting, that really just left the mortars to try to range in here again. Needing a 6, they never even got anywhere near a 4, folks. So, you know, Soviet artillery in mid-war, it's a wee bit shaky. But that was a very exciting turn 2 over and done with for me, but things have got to get happening now in turn 3, because reserves are going to arrive. Turn 3. British turn 3, folks. So in terms of movement, there was quite a bit of movement. Oh, in terms of starting step, 2 reserves came on. I was hoping for 1, but 2 came on at the same time. In terms of movement, they've dodged over to this side of the cover. These honeys are continuing to dash up to protect that. The Humbers moved over to get in range of the mortars, and that was a bit for movement. So in terms of shooting, let's just start over here. They were ranged in by the artillery and then shot up a bit by, let me think, Grants. Grants it was. The 17-pounders and the Humbers went for the mortars. So the mortars came out of all of that probably the best. Though everybody took hits, everybody's pinned, but 2 guys are dead in there, and they are ranged in again by these guys who I seem to have no answer for. He fired up there, managed to get 2 hits, and I managed to get 1 potential bail and 1 failed save. He failed the firepower. Oh no, he passed the firepower for the potential bail. I'm talking rubbish. He failed the firepower for the potential kill, and that seems to be.
Both firepowers, but you rolled a 6 on one of them, so it didn't matter.
But that seems to be the theme, as you can see over here. First of all, first platoon with the main guns needing 2s rolled 3 1s, and then the other ones managed to get a hit with the other guns managed to get 1 hit and maximised the bail. We may roll on a 1 for the save. A lot of 1s there. But then these guys came in and managed to get 2 more bails and a kill. So they may get back in, they may not, and then we'll see what they can do back to them. If they're stationary, they're quite good. If they have to move, as these guys do, they're not so good. So it could have been a lot better for the Brits that turn. They haven't quite dealt with the mortars, but everything's pinned over there. It's turn 3, so remember, the Brits can win at turn 6, end of their turn 6, and they go first. So this is important that I don't get too distracted away from here. Soviet turn 3. So in terms of motivations, the infantry unpinned, the mortars unpinned. They all got back in, and he didn't. So in terms of movement, the infantry are moving away from the bombardment. There's no point in hanging about there. Them getting hit, the mortars getting hit. In terms of movement, 1 failed to do a cross check, but 3 moved up from this field. That's T34s. HQ moved up, and the rest stayed put. So in terms of shooting, 3 dice looking for 5s got 1 hit, matched the anti-tank. It turned out to be a bail. These guys, 8 dice, and they got 1 dice above a 3. So it got mistaken targeted onto him, and he made a save. So it's back to the start, but these guys are going to have the full rate of fire. It's going to be nasty. Elsewhere, my mortars tried to range in here and did not. Didn't get a 6. They needed a 6, folks. So that was a bit of a disappointing turn for me. So it's definitely a Mexican standoff, but I think the advantage passes back to the Brits, because they're going to get some armour cars to come help them too. Turn 4. British turn 4. So motivation was just 1 remount, and that was successful. Excuse me, last reserves. Too much pizza. Hold on a minute, I'm going to start that again. British turn 4, so motivations was 1 remount, and it was successful. And then the last reserves came in, as you can see here. Other movement was these guys moving up to get short range flank shots. And that was about it really for movement, so lots and lots of shooting. First of all, there was some shots where they had no other targets from 17-pounders and the Humbers at the mortars, but no hits. The HQ for the Humber, that's the formation HQ, remember, it called in an artillery barrage, and that was just not a repeat barrage. 4 dead there out of 7 hits. So they've taken, I'll take them off the table, they're actually dead. So that was a pasting. They've not really got any targets, they're just keeping themselves going on the ground. So these guys firing didn't have much luck over there. They got a couple of hits, but long range, when mistaken target was employed and they made their saves. Oh no, in fact, they built one out, because I rolled a 1. So they did not too bad with 3 dice. Here, didn't get anything. They got a couple of hits, but made my saves. But over here, it was much more effective. He got bailed out by the Grant HQ. As I said before, he got bailed out by a wee honey. And then, was it 3 dead that turn? I think 3 got killed that turn. So they've taken a pasting. There's 1 left alive in that platoon. They have got a couple bailed, but there's only 3 of them, one of which is currently bailed, as well as the HQ, in a position to shoot back at them. And if they can't roll above a 3, they ain't going to do much damage. And the infantry, they've had it, basically. I'll just run them around, see if I can unpin them first, run them around and see if they can get up to any mischief. So, comes down to motivations for these guys, I reckon. Turn 4 motivations for the Soviets. Once again, the infantry didn't unpin, unfortunately, but they played their part in the game, which was to run up, get killed and run away again. 1 tank didn't get back in, so there was a remount here and here. So in terms of movement, I just moved the infantry out for under the template. The artillery failed to range in again on the 17-pounders. And then over here, well, they got 4 dice looking for 4s and they never got above a 2. Up here, they managed to get a couple of hits, but 1 was saved and then 1 killed. He got 2 hits, 1 was saved, 1 was matched, and it failed the firepower for the potential bail. And then he got a hit and it was saved. So, bye-bye. They tried a shoot and scoot on a 5 up, just to try and force him to move, but that didn't happen. So that will be the end of them next turn, I reckon, unless there's a massive swing. Turn 5. British turn 5, so nothing really in the starting step in terms of movement. There wasn't very much at all because everything was sitting in a good place to shoot. These guys edged up so they could get their 2-pounders into the game. So in terms of shooting, let's start over here. They are pinned from direct fire shooting from various targets, and they lost a mortar. They may have lost that last turn, I think. Actually, they did. This turn or last turn, I can't remember, folks. But they still got 5, but they're pinned. So it was really down to over here now. One of the 17-pounders could see him and killed him. Then over here, there was shots coming in from everywhere, folks. At the end of the day, we've got a bailed 1 from that platoon that's all that's left. Bailed HQ, 2 bailed from that platoon and 1 live from that platoon. So I've got to get back in and then hope for some kind of miracle, or they're not going to survive another turn of shooting, basically. So this is Soviet turn 5, folks. I'm going to concede at the motivation point, because with rerolls, he didn't get back in, he didn't get back in, he didn't get back in, so there's 1 tank sitting there, so there's no point. And if they all got back in, I maybe could have destroyed a platoon and maybe kept myself able to head over that way, but I won't survive another turn of shooting. So that is going to be it. I'm just going to have to do the honourable thing and concede. So we'll go over for a recap. Before we do the recap, folks, don't forget we have 2 games more coming up after that. Right, folks, let's go over for the recap. So from one point of view, first of all, one thing that didn't happen was these guys. I was keeping them there as a threat, these T34s in the wood, with the hope that the mortars would range in. And with re-roll misses and then them re-rolling successful saves, I was hoping to deal with the 17-pounders and have them coming in. But this was going to be the main attack. They were going to come over, hopefully mug the reserves. I was thinking maybe 1 platoon at a time. And then go off and take this objective. My pure old infantry were originally going to sort of curve off towards this objective, but infantry, they're just going to get shot to bits by all the light assets. They don't really, unless you've got a lot of light assets to deal with your opponent's light assets, your infantry are going to get shot to bits and then mortared and artillery and so on. So I wasn't surprised what happened to them. But over here, you know, they say in tank warfare that whoever fires first wins, right? But in this instance, it ended up whoever fired first won, but it took several turns of crap shooting on both sides until the Grants found the range, and then the T34s just, they couldn't hit back, even just needing a 4. And when they did hit in the one turn, they could have done a lot of damage. The Grants made their saves. And then also, that last turn, I mean, 2, 4, 6, I mean, there was 8 dice rolled there to finally get a 4 up, leaving just one tank active. So a bit of a slap in the face from Lady Luck for me. Doesn't necessarily mean the game would have went the other way, but I would have certainly enjoyed it more if it had been a bit more of a fight over there and then a fight over here, as I was hoping for. But what do you think of the game and your list, Rob?
Well, I really like the list. It's quite versatile for reserves because I can either have 2 Grants and a Honey in reserve, or the HQ a Grant and a Daimler, so the Honeys can be out dealing with infantry, light tanks, whatnot. But the main thing is the 17 pounders, and it's the main reason why I picked Maneuver, because I knew you'd pick attack, because it gives me a more defensive stance, because obviously I'm the defender, but it's not as devastating as being defending by going defender. And that's the only way to really bring you onto the 17 pounders, at least onto one objective anyway, in which case you never really move near it. And the Grants, they hit on a 4, which is nice. Decent armour, so compared to my Crusader Honey list, it's like I'm living the dream, being able to bounce anti-tank 9 shots.
Yeah.
They have a 3+ firepower, and also they have that secondary weapon, which actually bailed a couple of T34s sometimes. But they also have a 3+ remount as well, which I think is pretty valuable. But yeah, it was just, the game boiled down to dice rolls and who could start rolling better, quicker.
It was like my last game against Peter, where, you know, he's was it 7 long-barreled Panzer IVs got smashed to bits by these T34s, down to the dice at the end of the day. He may well have lost them all, but I should have lost a hell of a lot of T34s. I only lost 2 in that game, and that was down to the dice, his terrible dice rolling. And this game, there was terrible dice rolling on both sides, but I think there was just 1 or 2 critical turns where the dice just did the right thing, and that was enough to turn it. But there you go, folks. A trouncing for this T34 list. It's been due a trouncing for a while, to be honest. It's been riding its luck. So this was the game where the worm turned. So, folks, don't forget to check out Valley Gaming, check out Rob's channel, and give it a sub, hit the bell button on it, you know, because it'll help him build the channel and get his battle reports, because he's putting them out all the time. And if you like watching battle reports, you're going to like watching his games. So subscribe, hit the bell button, and that will help him grow his channel and bring it out to more people on YouTube. Same goes for me, folks. Thanks for watching. Thanks to all the subscribers I've got. And if you just drop in from time to time, thanks for that as well. But if you hit the subscribe button and the bell button, that means we'll definitely see you all on the next one. Cheers, Rob.
Back to back.
You know what's coming next, folks. Dice Rage. That's the main game out of the way, so let's share another couple of T34 games, but these are late war. I wasn't going to share these as a main feature because my recording wasn't very good. I wasn't expecting to play on the day I recorded these, so things were a bit rushed, and it wouldn't maybe do as a full video feature, but it'll do quite good as a bit of a summarised report that you're going to see next. So we're going to have two games, one game against Tom, one game against Peter, and in both cases the T34s are attacking. So let's go over and have a look at the T34 list that I'm going to use in Late War. So here is the Late War T34 formation that I'm going to be using in these videos. Now, the list you can see here I put together to play against somebody in a practice game. Somebody who's not played for a while. They play German tanks, so I thought I'll just bring a pile of tanks and we can have a good run around, you know, run around and shoot up. But he never made it on the day, so I ended up having to play with this list, and it's not the most balanced list and not the kind of list I would choose to play, but it'll still be good to show how it played, and then I will show you a balanced version of this list as well when I'm done here. So what have we got? We've got a T34 hero formation. It's got a HQ of 1 tank and then 3 platoons of 4, and they're all T34 85s. And in part of the formation there's also that unit of submachine gunners on the top left there. That's hero submachine gunners, 7 bases plus a commissar. Not a very big infantry unit, but it's a few points to balance out this list as it was. Then in support they've got 5 T34 76s. These are ordinary, so to speak, Soviet T34s. They are aggressive and they're green. These guys are trained, I should point out, but they have, I think they call it crafty, so they've got better sort of movement order type roles, you know, for blitzes and shooting and scooting and so on. They're a 3+ instead of a 4+. So a unit of 5 T34 76s, sorry, they're green, which means they're maybe not so good in the assault phase, needing a 5 to hit, but it's another a run around unit. You know, if the opponent is busy dealing with these guys, they're maybe not going to be able to deal with them. They're not the priority target. And then to back them up, 3 SU-100s. So these guys are only rate of fire 1, they don't really fire well on the move, but they are veteran, they are careful, so they could be quite survivable, and if they hit you, they are going to hurt you. I think it's anti-tank 15, I think. So if they hit you, they're going to hurt you, but it's a very small specialised unit that can be difficult to use because they're only going to have 3 dice per turn at best, you know, and it's very easy to miss with 3 dice. So there you go, folks. There is a slightly wacky and off-kilter T34 85 list. Right, folks, we've deployed, so Tom will go through his list. I'll go through deployment just now. You can see objective marker here and here, and then the minefields are all across here. So, as I have very little in the way of infantry, let's see, a careful analysis might determine where my main thrust is going to go. I'm going to go down this side. So you can see I have my submachine gunners and the 76mm T34s and the SU-100s. So I've got to watch this flank, potentially for reserves as well, so they might be good for that. But they're staying back out of long range of the 88. These are starting, short range, and these are starting within short range. So I can get a duel against those 88s early doors, and these guys are just ready for a mad dash. Use their super cross-country dash speed to make some quick progress towards this objective, bearing in mind the risk to my flanks from potential reserves arriving in here in the form of 4 Panthers.
Okay, so I'm playing the D-Day Panzer Grenadier formation using the 9th Panzer. So my troops are only skill 4, so I've got some Stummels, some Panzer Grenadiers with Panzerfaust. These are the half tracks. 2 88s, these are normal 88s. Artillery Observer, for the artillery it's in reserve. HQ for this half track. These are dismounted Panzer Grenadiers, but they've been upgraded with the Panzer Pioneer. 2 mortars, 2 flamethrower half tracks, 4 SS Panthers, and 3 Vesps, and finally 3 Pack 40s in reserve. And that's my list. Tension B, this flank looked really weak, so I put a load of minefields there. Hopefully 88s. We're going to try fight off the centre. Wasn't expecting this much armour, so we'll see how that goes. And hopefully if I can use the woods, Panzer Shreks, and maybe a good ambush, I can hold this sector.
Initial Russian movement is largely a dash off to the left with the T34s. Some infantry have moved up to the front, the rest of the tanks are staying put to shoot, with the idea of killing some 88s, and there's 2 88s, remember, in the central position that managed to kill one of them. No other shooting from the T34s because of this dash that they've done. I'm just trying to mob that objective, but you can see Tom is already putting down his ambush for his turn, which is the Pak 40s. So Tom has popped his ambush, he's brought out a couple of flame half-tracks to support, and a couple of bases of infantry too, to have a real go at those T34s. He's moving his half-tracks over with Panzer Grenadiers to shoot my infantry, and then he's going to bring his Stumos over as well, because he's not going to be doing anything on that flank, it would seem. The surviving 88 on the hill, it passed its last stand, by the way. So, German turn 1 shooting. Flamers managed to get a bale. The Faust managed to get a bale. A double bale. One of them was actually double bailed, but survived. Smoke across here to start them shooting back, and then these came in. Kill, kill, potential bail, but no. Kill, and then a potential kill, but ended up as a bail on the HQ. So that's basically one platoon clobbered. And then these guys, they took up quite a few hits from machine gun fire, but they just bailed every save. So there's now only 3 of them left. They are pretty much out of the game, and they took a couple of hits actually from 88s, but 2 field firepowers. Otherwise they'd be dead. So clobbering for 1 platoon, and I will now leave the area. Just a question of what I'm leaving the area with. Sorry folks, there was one more thing to finish off. With the build at HQ and 1 live tank, Thomas put those 2 suicide guys in. One died to defensive fire, the other one got in missed unfortunately. I motivated and got a kill, so the HQ's still alive, that's the most important thing. Moving on to, so motivations. The single survivor from that ambush platoon failed its last stand even with a reroll from the HQ. The rest of the guys, well, they're just bombing it around out of line of sight off those packs that I can now pretty much forget about. They're on the periphery now, not got a good line of sight. I've moved a couple of T34s to get them out of line of sight off the packs. The SUs I've moved over a bit as well, failed a blitz in the process, which meant there's not a hell of a lot of firing to be done this turn, folks. So you can see the infantry are just running away, and the firing that was done against the 88 was ineffectual. Too much was needed to hit. Needed like 7s and maybe even more because of the failed blitzes. German turn 2 movement, it's mostly about these Stummels coming up to get shots down the road to deal with those T34s and support the 88. Elsewhere, Tom is going to see if he can move maybe 1 off those packs, but they'll need a good cross check. And in German shooting, the 88s once again failed a couple of firepowers to kill. The packs that didn't move managed to get that survivor. And then the Stummel fired down the road too, they managed to get 1 bail, but I passed the subsequent remount that was required for the double bail. The mortars had another go at these infantry, but they're just running away, folks. Soviet turn 3, motivations were fine, 2 remounts, so in terms of movement, 1 failed cross check, the rest of the platoon have moved over to that hill. This platoon's moved up, so I've got line of sight on Stummels and a chance to shoot at an 88 and potentially assault it. As it was, they killed the 88, and then that meant they could fire back, and with them they managed to get 2 Stummels, but they're kind of right in the hornet's nest now, folks. German turn 3, so no motivations required. Reserves road for when it arrived. Cross checks required, attempted, a cross here rather, used to attempt a cross check for them in wood, but no luck. The mortars are just getting themselves out of dodge at the moment. And any other movement?
Just the infantry team behind the
And then the Stummels are going for revenge. So German turn 3 shooting, there's not a lot of stuff they can shoot at the moment because of reserves and the packs. So the Stummels fired up the road, managed to get 3 hits out of 4, and I failed 1 save, resulting in a death. A potential bail didn't have a successful firepower, and then a Faust managed to bail out another one, so there's 1 dead and 1 bailed in that platoon.
I know what I'll do, sorry.
Oh, he's running around doing what observers do, which is observe. Soviet turn 4, so motivation, they're running away, still pinned. Build a guy, go back in. They're moving up in a moment just to support the 85s. 185 has moved to here, the HQ's moved to there. I've actually got to do something with him as well. He needs to move to get a line of sight on the Stummels, and I'm going to try and finish off the Stummels before the Panthers arrive. Soviet turn 4, so shooting, the Stummels fell to the first platoon that fired at them, which left some MGing to do. So these guys over here, they actually managed to kill the guy in the wood. I got a 6 for my MG fire, but pinned that unit. They go over there, a couple of hits, 1 failed firepower to kill, and then a shooting scoot with this platoon, not including the HQ, just to move more towards that objective. And that's it, folks. So German turn 4, 2 dice rolled for reserves, but they were 3s, so a lucky card was burned. Panthers rolled for reserves, came on the back edge. So if he doesn't kill me, I've got to hope that he misses, and if he does miss, I can go and get him on the flank, otherwise it'll be game over. And then these guys didn't unpin, but they've got plenty of time yet. So German movement, you can see the infantry moving up to protect that guy slipped off the hill, to protect the flanks of the Panthers. They're moving up with field follow me. They managed to cross here and reposition themselves. And the guys are pinned. So
I might as well attempt to dig this one then.
yeah.
I do.
They actually have a really long range.
Formation HQ's moving to give them some support.
And
It's this German turn 4. 4 shooting. German turn 4 shooting. Get this on camera because this could end the game anyway. So your Panthers, you've got in front of you, you have a platoon of 3. 1, 2, 3. Where's the 4th one? That's one over there, right? So there's 1, 2, 3, 4. Another platoon and then the HQ. So platoon and the HQ. So who do you want to shoot?
I'll just shoot this.
Right.
Only 2?
2 firepowers. 1 dead, 1 bailed. Soviet turn 5, and the good news is the submachine gun is unpinned and captured the wood. So they've done their job for today. In terms of movement, the only thing that really stayed put is this platoon here. Everything else is moving in. Forget about that. They're moving in to do some assaults. They've got line of sight through wrecks and things onto enough of the Panthers to account for 3 shots. And over to shooting. Shooting, folks, they fluffed their lines completely, couldn't roll above a 2. With that tank 50 would have been handy, but these guys managed to get 5 hits out of 6, which was quite good. Resulted in 1 dead and 1 bailed, and then it's just going to be assault. There's no point in shooting over there because they're pinned already, so I'm just going to go in for the assault. So for the assault, folks, the 76s went in, lost 1 to a Faust, ran in, killed 1, but then ran away again, even with the company HQ. They just needed a 4 with a reroll. So the next platoon's gone in, lost 1 bail to a Faust, and then during the fight, it was quite bloody. I managed to stay in the fight, so did Tom's guy. Another guy bailed out to a Faust, but then eventually got them down to just 1 guy left. Tom's decided, get him back, keep the objective live, and then try and wipe them out with some anti-tank fire. So German turn 6, in terms of motivations, quite importantly he stayed. That remounted. Then you can see they're staying put to shoot. Infantry are moving up. Flamers moving up. The reserves, he managed to get to back edge reserves, so they will be able to hold that objective next turn. I don't think he's going to have any worries now about losing that. If they'd arrived over there, then maybe it would have been a problem, but I think it's probably night for the Soviets. German turn 6 shooting then, folks. So the West rolled on, got one hit, but actually on the HQ we managed to save. And then over here there was one hit, or two hits rather, on us 85, and they got splattered by the Pak 40s. Another 85 fell to a Faust, and then importantly 6 shots onto the HQ, forcing them to attach to the unit. Only one hit, and I mistaken targeted onto a bailed one. So it's still game on, but he's now got 3 Wesps plus his HQ defending that objective. He didn't assault here, by the way, because there was quite a few tanks around for defensive fire. Soviet turn 6 or 7, I'm not sure. But anyway, folks, total dice failure again. He ran away, which is fine, but here with a reroll, needing a 4 up, didn't bail in, and then ran away. So that's 2 4 up with rerolls failed. So these are going to come over, try and kill them, and leave in a position to do an assault. It's highly unlikely. They guys don't have much target, so they're just going to try and shoot some Panthers. Right, folks, shooting was terrible. They all missed, which is fair enough, but they all missed as well. He's going to get one shot, maybe kill one of them, but okay, let's get it on camera. He does. He manages to miss, so I'm going to go in. Might as well go in. Do your defensive fire. Get it on camera, folks.
So I'll get the Panzerfaust.
And everything, yeah.
Well. The Panzerfaust, miss. Because I'm,
oh, you're pinned.
Yeah, and
right.
I'm 1 vest.
So that's 9 against 5. No, so game over. Yeah, because you'll be able to kill him next turn, I would imagine. So there you go, folks. So they nearly did it, guys. They're very mobile. You know, having a tank list like this, especially T34s, you can pick yourself up and move yourself on to another part of the battlefield if you think the grass is greener on that side. If they had passed those last stands, the remount last stands at the end, then I think they would have taken that objective. I think they could have dealt with the Wesps and then assaulted that survivor. Anyway, let's go over to the second of the late war games where the T34s are attacking against Peter using the very interesting 21st Panzer Division. But it's a list that doesn't have a lot of heavy armour. It's got quite a lot of good anti-tank 12, for instance, for taking out enemy tanks. As you'll see, there's lots and lots of 88s in nests. So it sounds like the worst nightmare for a T34 list. But let's go over and see how it played out. Right, Peter, so we're playing Breakthrough. You chose these diagonals, and then I placed my objectives there, so I'm coming in from this quarter. You've got a big strong line of MG nests and 88s, which is a bit scary, and then an ambush.
I've got 4 of these.
Right.
And I've got infantry here, going to try and cover those objectives.
Now the objectives don't go live to turn 6, remember, folks. And in reserve, I've decided to put a lot of stuff in reserve in this game because I've basically got machine gun nests and pack nests to come up against. So I've got infantry, Hero T34s and just ordinary T34 76s. Soviet turn 1 movement, folks. So using crosshairs and dashes, these guys have gone into that wood. They couldn't get anywhere where they were out of sight of the 88s, and they've just gone into here to once again stay out of line of sight of the 88s. I think he'll have to be pernickety. They go like that to be more than 2 inches back from the edge. They've got plenty of movement. They're just going to stay put because if they move up, if they blitz up, they'll be hitting those nests on 7s, which isn't very good. So they're just going to stay put until the nest fire, then they can come up and have a go at the nests, or potentially the ambush, or so on. So they'll stay put, so pretty boring. Soviet turn 1. So German turn 1, no reserves, Peter?
No reserves, even with a reroll.
Using Von Luck. Then
The Grenadiers just move up to try and cover this objective.
yeah, and they did a successful follow me along with your HQ. And because I'm being a scaredy cat, no shooting. So over to Soviet turn 2. Soviet turn 2, so no reserves yet. Straight on to movement. 2 of them failed their 2 up cross check, the other ones are over here. I want to keep moving on up this way. These guys all passed the cross checks to come out against these nests. So in terms of shooting, they used their MGs against the gone to ground nest but managed to get it pinned. So on the way into a subsequent assault, only 1 dice of defensive fire killed 1 though. And then they went in, 3 on the flak, 1 on the MG, and every one of them hit. So that's the end of those. A bit of a consolidation, he can't get himself completely out of line of sight of every 88, but the other ones at least are. But even if he goes, that's only 2 left in that platoon. So over to Peter for his turn 2. German turn 2, so nothing in the way of elevations. The infantry tried to dig in but didn't. Ambush. Oops. And then reserves. 2 reserves have arrived. So these guys are coming on this corner. They're here to keep themselves protected from them and in a position to clobber them, or if it goes wrong, clobber them. And then these Panzer Grenadiers are coming on from this side. So German turn to shoot nothing from the 88s because I've not really got any targets. But over here, they managed to get 4 hits out of 8 shots, but it was enough to kill 3 of them, including the HQ failed his warrior save. And then they got 3 hits out of 3, and that was enough to kill. Most of the hits were on the side. So that's the T34s basically wiped out. Also, these guys don't, the platoon HQ died over there, so they're continually out of command now, which means you can't use command orders. I don't even know if that means they're on a last stand. We'll have to figure that out, folks. Right, and I think that is going to be it for Jet Y. They failed to dig in, and that's about it, folks. Right, folks, so these guys, they're not in command because the commander died over there, right, with 6 inches, so we can't jump to another one. So the rules are based around tanks in command, as we see it. So we did the last stand and they ran away. A last stand and they ran away. No reserves. That's my turn, folks. Basically, my turn involved running away. So now I've got to hope that I can get my reserves on next turn. If I can get all my tanks that are on reserve in that corner, I can make a bit of progress. Right, okay, so Jimmy turn 3. Peter, you didn't have anything to do except roll for reserve, and you got...
I got 1 reserve, and I brought on...
Funluck.
And
then dismounted.
Dismounted the Grenadiers here. These finally managed to dig in, but the formation banner didn't. And then over here managed to get out the wood, and they're just moving over here, and the Hotchkiss are just moving behind the hill to cover.
As I've only got these guys left on the table, and they're not showing themselves, there'll be no shooting this turn unless you just want to fire at random.
No.
Target practice on the barn door, see if you can hit the barn door. So it's Soviet turn 4, 2 dice for reserves, didn't get any. I'm not doing anything else, folks. There's no point in them sticking their nose up to try and hit these guys on 7s, so I'm just going to wait until I maybe need them. So that's it, my turn finished. I've failed to dig in the HQ again, kept them all up on the back slope so they're hull down. That wee platoon moving around the flank, and at least this turn I'll be able to do something because I'll get at least 1 reserve coming in. But we think that is it. No shooting once again. What a terrible game, folks. I think it's turn 5, actually. Jimmy turn 5. So, 3 dice for reserves. I got 1. It was my larger platoon of T34s. That's a 76 mils. My SU-100s, they're not going to do anything in the game. To get from where they are to get to anywhere, I have to run a gauntlet off the 88, so they can just sit and do nothing. These came in, did a wee bit of machine gun to no effect. They assaulted to absolutely no effect as well. These are green, so they're hitting on 5s, but Peter broke off. So I'm at the objective now, so he's got a hell of a lot of infantry to come get me, but next turn I will definitely get 1 more platoon of tanks. and this is going to go live next turn. So Peter's got to come and get me. Now, I forgot to record or press the buttons in the wrong order. That's a common one, folks. So I missed turn 5 for Peter. So here's some pretty pictures whilst I quickly describe what happened. The infantry that were pushed off the objective didn't dig in. The Butte Stoogs, whatever you want to call them, are trying to get around the hill to get line of sight on my T34s, but only got a line of sight on a couple of them and got a kill. So not too much there for Peter. He's really just sitting there waiting for my potentially final push on the objective. It's all about what's happening here, folks. And in terms of reserves, I've got my submachine gunners and my platoon of T34s, 85s. So they edged up a bit to get into assault range, these moved up to get into assault range, and a bit of machine gun fire killed one guy because he never dug in. 3 were able to move in, and during the assault, as you can see, there's no Germans left alive. That assault went on for ages, both of us motivating, and some really atrocious dice roll from Peter for the Faust, otherwise they'd have been wiped out. As it was, the Faust bailed one, killed one, and he just got away with the skin of his teeth, killed the last one, and no defenders within 6 inches to come back into the assault sort of within 4 inches. So I started my turn within 4 of that, so that's it, folks. Really had no choice other than to put as much as I could into this end, and then coming down as I did on that side, kind of committed Peter to that end of the table in the hope that I could push on, and it worked, but partly because of Peter's terrible Faust rolls. So folks, here we go with the list that I would have taken myself if I wanted something a bit more balanced, i.e. something that's got a bit of artillery support, some armoured cars, and a bit less of the specialised anti-tank that, to be honest, rarely delivers. These guys are much better just mobbing bigger tanks, and it's definitely a mob. So what have I done to change it? I have basically dropped out the SG-100s, you know, the white elephants, so to speak, and in its place I've got 2 additional T34 76s, the armoured car platoon. Importantly, the artillery. You really need artillery in your list. Even if your tanks, you need something that is going to dig out enemy anti-tank guns, enemy infantry, you know, to thin them down a bit before you have to go in for the assault. Especially if those infantry are in buildings, because you can't assault into buildings with tanks. So that definitely helps. And I've chosen these over mortars, like the 122 mils. They've got better anti-tank, better firepower, but more importantly, they've got a better range, which means you can fire all over the battlefield, wherever your opponent's anti-tank assets might be. The infantry, all I've done is add a flamethrower on the end there. That might help them get into assaults against defending infantry. The only real chance they stand though in the game is if they can come on from reserve in a way where they can approach the objective without suffering several turns of shooting, because they're going to get destroyed basically trying to move across the battlefield. So there you go. It's a bit of a bigger tank mob. It's got artillery, some armoured cars, and a little bit of a stronger infantry force. Much better balanced, I think, anyway. If you've got any ideas of your own, stick them in the comments below, folks. I am just basing this on my own collection. Your collection might give you even better options than what we see here. So there you go, folks. Again, I think that terrain was critical in. That big hill that I stuck the objectives behind protected my large reserves from the 88s. I think that was critical. And then I think also Peter's decision to pop his, or to bring his reserves rather, on in the bottom corner, not far away from the objectives, to get an easy kill on the T34s. Well, it's slowed down my attack on that side, but I think it would have been better coming in the opposite corner and coming over and putting some direct support in against the reserves that were coming on, and then try to hold the objective, because it's quite a common thing, folks, that I see, that people leave objectives hanging to a degree and let their tanks go off and do tank killing. But, you know, like, that doesn't necessarily work well when the objective is under direct pressure from tanks. And in this mission, they were always going to come pouring on at some point onto that objective without the 88s being able to support them. Anyway folks, there you go. Lots of T34 action. Maybe give you some ideas for your T34 lists, or make you think you want to try them if you've never tried it before. But there you go folks. Hopefully that was 3 interesting games for you. So, see you all on the next one.